When I was 16, my parents died in a house fire. One night, smoke detectors that should have worked but didn't, and I lost everything. I survived because I was sleeping at a friend's house. They didn't. The grief counselor said I was lucky to be alive. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like the world had ended. My Uncle Richard, my father's older brother, took me in without hesitation. "Your family," he said at the funeral. "You'll always have a home with me." He and his wife Susan had 3 kids of their own, twin sons my age named Kyle and Brett, and a daughter 2 years younger named Madison. Their house was loud and chaotic, and the opposite of the quiet grief I was drowning in. But Richard was kind. He cleared out their home office, turned it into a bedroom for me, made space in his family. "Your father would have done the same for my kids," he told me. My parents had life insurance, not a fortune, but $750,000 split between the house settlement and policies. Richard, as my legal guardian, was named trustee until I turned 25. "This money is yours," he said, showing me the paperwork. "Every penny. I'm just holding it in trust until you're old enough to manage it. I promise you, Daniel, I will guard this with my life." I believed him. For 10 years, I believed him. Then on my 25th birthday, when I asked to access the trust, Richard looked me in the eye and said, "What trust? There's nothing left. My name is Daniel Foster, and this is my story about how my uncle's deathbed promise turned into a 10-year battle that revealed everything I needed to know about family and greed." The first year after my parents died was a blur of grief and adjustment. Richard and Susan tried their best, but you can't just slot a traumatized teenager into an existing family and expect everything to work smoothly. Kyle and Brett tolerated me. We shared some classes at school and they introduced me to their friends, but there was always distance. I was the cousin whose parents died, the tragic figure who made people uncomfortable. Madison was kinder. She'd bring me snacks when I locked myself in my room, ask if I wanted to watch TV with the family, try to include me in normal teenage life. But I was lost. Therapy helped eventually. But that first year I just survived. Went through the motions of school, ate dinner with a family that wasn't mine, slept in a room that smelled like someone else's house. Richard checked in regularly, asked about grades, about friends, about how I was processing everything. He seemed genuinely concerned, genuinely committed to keeping his promise to my father. "Your dad and I weren't always close," he told me once. "We competed growing up, fought over stupid things. But we loved each other. And I know he'd want me to take care of you." "Thank you," I said, "for everything." "You don't need to thank me. You're family." When I graduated high school, Richard sat me down to discuss the trust. "You've got $750,000 in investments," he explained, showing me quarterly statements, growing steadily. "When you turn 25, it'll be yours to do whatever you want with. But until then, I'm managing it carefully." The statements looked official. Professional letterhead, detailed breakdowns, percentage returns. I didn't understand all of it, but Richard seemed competent and trustworthy. "Can I use some for college?" I asked. "Absolutely. That's what your parents would have wanted. I'll pay tuition and housing directly from the trust. You focus on studying." I went to State University, majored in computer science, worked part-time to cover personal expenses. Richard paid tuition each semester, sent me living expenses monthly. Not extravagant, but enough. During college, I came home for holidays. The house felt less foreign now, more familiar. Kyle and Brett had gone to different schools, moved on with their lives. Madison was finishing high school, talking about art school in California. Susan had changed. She'd been warm initially, but somewhere along the way she'd become distant, polite, but cool. I figured it was the stress of having an extra kid for years. The financial burden, the disruption to their family. Susan's been going through some things, Richard explained once when I noticed her coldness. Midlife stuff. Don't take it personally. I didn't. I was just grateful to have somewhere to go for Christmas. Senior year of college, I met Emily. Smart, funny, studying environmental science. We started dating in the fall, got serious by spring. When I told her about my past, about my parents and the trust, she listened without the usual pity. "You've done really well," she said. "Most people wouldn't recover from that kind of loss." "I had help," I said. "My uncle saved me." After graduation, I got a job at a tech company in Austin. Good salary, benefits, room for advancement. Emily and I moved in together, started building a life. Richard called regularly, sent updates on the trust performance. "It's doing great," he'd say. "Should be close to $1 million by the time you turn 25. Your parents would be proud of you." I was proud too. I'd survived the worst thing imaginable, graduated college, built a career. The trust was my safety net, proof that my parents' love could still protect me even after they were gone. Everything changed 3 months before my 25th birthday. Emily and I were planning our future, talking about buying a house, maybe getting married, using some of the trust money for a down payment. I was excited to finally access the money my parents had left, to use it the way they'd intended, to build a good life. "You should call your uncle," Emily said. "Start the paperwork for transferring the trust. These things take time." She was right. I called Richard. "Hey, Uncle Richard. I wanted to talk about the trust. My birthday's coming up and I'll need to start the transfer process." Silence on the other end. "Uncle Richard?" "Yeah, I'm here. Listen, Daniel, we should talk about this in person. Can you come home this weekend?" Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. "Is something wrong?" "Just, let's talk in person. Saturday?" "Okay," I said slowly. "Saturday." I told Emily about the call. "Maybe there's paperwork complications," she suggested, "or tax implications." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Saturday, I drove the 4 hours back to Richard's house. He answered the door looking older than I remembered, tired in ways that weren't just physical. "Come in," he said. "Susan's visiting her sister. Boys are working, Madison's at school, it's just us." We sat in the living room where he'd first told me I'd always have a home. The irony wasn't lost on me. "So," I said, "the trust." Richard took a breath. "Daniel, I need you to understand something. The last 10 years have been hard. The economy crashed, investments tanked. I did everything I could." "What are you saying?" "The trust, there's not as much as we hoped." My heart started pounding. "How much is there?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "About $50,000. The room tilted. "50,000? Out of 750,000? "Markets crashed in 2008, he said quickly. "Lost almost half. Then I tried to recover it. Made some investments that didn't pan out. Medical expenses for Susan, the boys' college tuition, Madison's art school. Everything just added up." "Wait," I said. "You used my trust money for Kyle and Brett's tuition? For Madison's art school?" "I was borrowing," he said, "planning to pay it back." "Borrowing without asking, that's called stealing." "Don't say that." Richard's voice rose. "I raised you, gave you a home, fed you, clothed you, paid for your education. With my money," I said. "From my trust. Money my parents left for me." "Your parents left you in my care," Richard said. "And I provided that care. Do you have any idea how expensive it is to raise a kid? The food, the clothes, the insurance? You volunteered to be my guardian. You promised to protect my inheritance. Those are two separate things. In the real world, they're connected. I couldn't afford another kid without using some of the trust. Then you should have told me. Should have asked.
Should have been honest instead of lying for 10 years. Richard stood up. I did the best I could. I'm sorry it wasn't enough. But you got through college, got a good job, you're doing fine. Because I worked. Because I lived cheap and saved and didn't rely on the money I thought was waiting for me. My voice cracked. I was going to buy a house. Start my life. Use the money my parents died leaving me. You can still do those things. With $50,000 instead of $1 million? Do you understand compound interest? Do you understand what you stole from me? I didn't steal anything, Richard said firmly. I made hard choices in difficult circumstances. If you can't understand that, then maybe you should leave. I stared at him. This man who'd promised to protect me, who'd looked me in the eye for 10 years and lied about quarterly statements and investment returns. Show me the paperwork, I said. All of it. Every statement, every withdrawal, every transaction. I don't have to show you anything until you're 25. 3 months away. Show me now, or I'm calling a lawyer tomorrow. Something shifted in Richard's expression. Fear, maybe. Don't threaten me. It's not a threat. It's a promise. Show me the records. He didn't. Claimed they were at his accountant's office, that he'd need time to compile everything, that I was being unreasonable. I left. Drove 4 hours back to Austin crying so hard I had to pull over twice. Emily held me while I told her everything. We're calling a lawyer, she said. First thing Monday. The lawyer's name was Patricia Mendez, and she specialized in trust disputes. She listened to my story, reviewed what little documentation I had, and delivered news I didn't want to hear. This is going to be complicated and expensive, she said. Trust litigation can take years. But based on what you're describing, you have a case for breach of fiduciary duty. What does that mean? Your uncle was legally obligated to manage that trust solely in your interest. If he used funds for his own benefit or his children's benefit, that's a breach. We can sue to recover the money, plus damages. How long will it take? 2 to 5 years, depending on how hard he fights. And it'll cost you. Legal fees will run $50,000 to $100,000. I felt sick. I don't have that kind of money. Some lawyers work on contingency for these cases. I don't, but I can refer you. She did. I met with 3 more lawyers before finding one willing to take the case on contingency, meaning he'd get paid from any recovery. His name was James Liu, and he was blunt. Your uncle stole from you. The question is whether we can prove it and whether there's anything left to recover. If he spent everything, winning the lawsuit won't help you. What's the first step? Discovery. We subpoena all financial records, bank statements, investment accounts, transaction histories, force him to show us where every penny went. Do it, I said. The lawsuit was filed 2 weeks before my 25th birthday. Richard received the papers and immediately called me, furious. How dare you sue me, he said. After everything I did for you. After everything you stole from me, I corrected. You had one job, protect my inheritance, and you spent it on yourself. I spent it on family. You were family. Then you should have treated me like it, instead of lying to me for 10 years. He hung up. Susan called an hour later. You're destroying this family, she said coldly. Richard gave you a home. We raised you like our own. Then why did you use my money to pay for Kyle and Brett's college, but make me work part-time? Why did Madison get art school in California while I got state school? Because there are children. And I was your nephew, under your care, with money my parents left me. You're an ungrateful, selfish... I hung up on her. Kyle called next. Dude, seriously? You're suing my dad? Your dad stole $700,000 from me. He didn't steal it. He used it to raise you. No, he used my money to raise you, to pay for your tuition, your car, your life, while telling me the trust was growing and safe. That's not how it was. Then how was it, Kyle? Explain to me how it's fair that my parents' money paid for your college while I worked nights at a grocery store. He couldn't. Hung up muttering about lawyers and greed. Only Madison reached out differently. A text. I didn't know. I'm sorry. If you need someone to testify about expenses, I will. That message made me cry. Not because it fixed anything, but because someone finally acknowledged the truth. Discovery was brutal. James subpoenaed 10 years of Richard and Susan's financial records. Bank statements, credit cards, investment accounts, mortgage papers, everything. What we found was worse than I imagined. Richard had opened a trust account initially, deposited the $750,000, and managed it legitimately for about 2 years. Then he started making transfers. Small ones at first. $5,000 here, $10,000 there. Always with vague notations like guardian expenses or Daniel's needs. But the expense records didn't match. Richard claimed $30,000 in guardian expenses one year. I cross-referenced my own receipts. My actual expenses that year, tuition, housing, food, insurance, totaled $18,000. The other $12,000 went somewhere else. We traced it. Boat payment. The boat Richard bought the summer after my parents died. More digging revealed the full scope. Over 10 years, $125,000 to Kyle and Brett's college tuition, $85,000 to Madison's art school, $67,000 to a kitchen renovation, $45,000 to the boat, $38,000 to a timeshare in Mexico, $90,000 to credit card debt, designer clothes, restaurants, travel, $150,000 to various investments that crashed, $50,000 to Susan's parents' medical bills, legitimate expenses for me, approximately $100,000. Total, $650,000 gone. Most of it to benefit Richard's immediate family, not me. The remaining $100,000 lost to market crashes and poor investments Richard made trying to cover his tracks. This is clear-cut theft, James said, reviewing the evidence. He converted trust funds for personal use. We can win this. But can we recover anything? James hesitated. That's the hard part. He doesn't have $700,000 sitting around. We'll have to go after assets. The trial took 3 years. Richard fought every step, hired expensive lawyers, claimed every expense was legitimate guardian costs. His lawyers argued that raising me had cost more than $100,000, that the additional money was
owed to Richard for providing care. Our forensic accountant destroyed that argument. Showed that average cost of raising a teenager was $15,000, $20,000 per year. Richard had claimed $65,000 annually in guardian expenses, while documented spending on me totaled $10,000. The boat, the timeshare, the kitchen renovation, his other kids' tuition, none of that could legally be paid from my trust. It was textbook breach of fiduciary duty. The jury took 4 hours to deliberate. Found in my favor. Awarded me $712,000, the stolen amount plus interest minus legitimate expenses. Richard and Susan cried when the verdict was read. Kyle and Brett sat stone-faced. Madison wasn't there, but she texted me, "Good, you deserve to win." But winning and collecting are different things. Richard didn't have $712,000. His lawyers filed for bankruptcy protection, tried to discharge the debt. Our lawyers argued that theft-based judgments couldn't be discharged in bankruptcy. The judge agreed. Ordered Richard to liquidate assets to pay the judgment. The house, the 4-bedroom where I lived for 3 years, where Richard's kids had grown up, went up for sale. So did the boat, the timeshare, Richard's retirement accounts, Susan's jewelry, everything. It still wasn't enough. Total asset liquidation brought in $480,000. The judge ordered wage garnishment for the rest. 25% of Richard's paycheck, every month until the debt was paid. At his salary, that would take 12 years. Richard quit his job, took a lower-paying position that made garnishment less effective. Susan divorced him, claimed she'd known nothing about the theft, tried to protect her own assets. Kyle and Brett stopped speaking to me entirely. Posted on social media about family betrayal and greed destroying relationships. I didn't respond. Let them believe what they wanted. Madison came to visit me in Austin. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know what Dad was doing. I just knew we had money for things, and you seemed okay." "I was okay because I didn't know what I lost," I said. "Because I believed him." "I testified at the trial," she said. "Told them about the kitchen renovation, the boat, the Mexico trips. I'm not speaking to Dad anymore." "You don't have to do that for me." "I'm doing it for me," she said. "He lied to all of us. Let us benefit from stolen money. That's not the kind of person I want to be associated with." It's been 7 years since the verdict. I've collected about $590,000 total. Still owed $122,000, but Richard's income has dried up, and enforcement is difficult. James says we could pursue more aggressive collection, but I'm tired. Tired of lawyers, tired of fighting, tired of turning my trauma into a legal battle. Emily and I got married. Bought a modest house in Austin. Had a daughter we named Sarah, after my mother. I used some of the recovered money for the down payment. Invested the rest conservatively. I think about my parents sometimes. Wonder what they'd think about how their money was used. About the family that fell apart over greed and betrayal. Would they be proud I fought? Or disappointed I had to? I think they'd understand. They'd be sad about Richard, about how trust can be weaponized by the people closest to you. But they'd be glad I didn't just accept it. Didn't let him win. Last month, I got a letter from Richard. First contact in 5 years. "I'm sorry," it said. "I made terrible choices. I convinced myself I was entitled to that money because I took you in. I was wrong. I destroyed our family and betrayed your parents' trust. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I understand what I did." I showed it to Emily. "Are you going to respond?" "I don't know," I said. Part of me wanted to. Wanted to say I forgave him, to heal the wound that had been festering for years. But forgiveness requires more than an apology. It requires trust. And Richard had proven over 10 years of methodical theft that he couldn't be trusted. So I didn't respond. Put the letter in a drawer and moved on. Because here's what I learned. Family isn't just about blood or obligation. It's about integrity. It's about keeping promises, especially the ones made to people who can't protect themselves. It's about doing right by someone even when it costs you something. Richard chose comfort over integrity, chose his own kids' luxuries over my future, chose lies over honesty, theft over trust. And in doing so, he lost the only thing that really mattered: family. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment about where you're watching from. And if you've ever had someone steal from you while calling it family care, you're not alone. Subscribe for more stories. Because sometimes the people who promise to protect you are the ones you need protection from. And sometimes justice means fighting for years to get back what was always yours.